was like an hour ago. It's like,
I think we're supposed to just do it together is why.
Yeah.
But I had a really hard time with the stock portion of it, like the calculations. For the light, and maybe you guys can help me understand it. I could not figure out how many shares he initially had at the very beginning when he got the $300,000 investment. It didn't say in there, did it?
It didn't say. Not that I could ever find.
Okay, so how did you value the company? Like, or I mean, how did you do all the calculations that they asked us to do in the prep case, in the prep assignment? Because I couldn't figure it out.
I was hoping somebody else would have that. I mean, everybody's going to have different answers. I was just sitting here working on it some more.
Dallin, were you able to figure that out?
For some reason, let me go ahead and look at it again.
I can barely hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Kind of. You're like so muted.
Can you hear me now?
Kind of. I mean, it's very quiet.
Quit biting on the cord. Maybe we can hear you better. Not that I give you a hard time. I don't do that to anybody.
No, never.
Not my nature.
I could see that. Yeah. Totally believe you there.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome. Ethan, if he does join us, he'll be late.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the only thing that I could figure out was maybe possibly just taking like the 50 cents per share and using that like to figure out how much stock based on their investment. Is that like, so they put in $175,000, you know, B and C in the Series A funding, and then just multiplying that by 50 cents. But I didn't know if that was right. Or dividing it by 50.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at, you know, I tried not, that other B, it's affected all my calculations. They should show me that stuff.
Yeah.
All circled here.
Let's see.
Okay. Because there's some like penalties. Okay, here we go. So they didn't do 175,000 initially. It's on page 2, just underneath, about halfway down, a little over halfway down. Said December 2006, they closed on $300,000 round of funding. Each 3 investors contributed $100,000.
Right. So
convertible notes that paid 8% interest back, angel investors at the time. So anyways, it says down here that they get 165,675 per investor.
Where are you saying that?
It's almost at the bottom of the paragraph. Each investor had the opportunity to increase their initial investment up to 156,667 per investment. And they did that, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
In the exhibit 4, they said that. But like, and that was the other thing. Like, who is this investor A that only put in 65,800, and where did that come from? So like, there was so much. I think the thing that was throwing me off was the exhibit 4, because there was more information in that than we'd been given through the whole case.
Yeah, so, I mean, because it says they each contributed 100,000. The key that I thought that I was getting out of this was In the case of a sale, the angel investors would receive 2 times their capital and interest before any other money was distributed, but they had no right to block the sale.
Right.
The
So do we
interest
just,
part, I'm assuming it was the 8%.
right, that's what I figured too. So do you think we just use those numbers to do the prep work then?
But is that 8% yearly, monthly, or just 8% on the money?
I thought it was 8% on the money. Dallin, I know you're trying to say something, but I can't hear you.
Okay, I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. I don't know what's going on with this thing.
Can't hear you.
Mm-mm.
He said he doesn't know what's going on with that thing.
Oh, I'm glad you can hear him. Can you
Barely.
interpret for us?
Yeah, I have my sound turned like way up so I can hear him.
Get out and get back on.
He's gonna get out and get back on.
Okay. Good job, Trisha.
Glad I can contribute.
Okay, well, I'm gonna just consider that then.
So the question I also was wondering about was, is that 8% on the 100,000? Or do you
So-
double it on the 200,000?
Well, this is what
Or
I'm
the
gonna
300.
assume. I'm gonna assume that we do the 8% on that first round of seed money. So the 65.8, the 156.6, and do it on that. And I think it's 8% total. So
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah, that one would make
That
more
would be
sense.
$624,000.
Wait,
That's what I came up with. I don't know if you guys came up with it. So you got a 300,000, 8% on 300,000 is $24,000. Since he'd be selling out, they get double.
right.
So there's another 300,000 on top of that, so it's 624,000.
So what's 8%? What did you get 8% of the 156? So
Well,
I
there
get
8% of 300,000. The initial investment said it was $300,000.
yeah, but they're each 8, like they each put in 100,000. So I mean, I guess it probably doesn't matter at the end of the day, but just to break it down, if you were doing a spreadsheet.
Now, see, later on it says they can invest. They have an option. Each angel investor had an option to increase their initial investment up to a total of $156,667 per investor.
Right. So I think that's where they got the number in the exhibit 4.
But
So
that's afterwards. But and I was getting that confused, trying to mix it in, and really you got to compartmentalize this thing. You got to say, okay, they invested $300,000. If it sells out, they get double that amount of their investment, and they're going to get interest. And I'm assuming the interest would be the 8% because it says 8% interest back earlier on the note. So 300,000 times 8% is 24,000. And 300,000 times 2 is 600,000. 600,000 plus 24,000, 624,000.
yeah, that sounded like a bunch of Greek to me.
So that kind of cuts into his $2 million.
Right.
But
That's what I thought too. So what?
but still 1.3, almost 3 million.
And then
That's
did you
the
understand?
other
Did you understand the valuation, or like how to figure into that his 2 million preferred shares? Is that like, if you're looking at the picture as a whole, is that a good thing for him to do, is to take the 2 million? Because I said that he should stay in for the next round, the next funding, because I think down in the long run he'll end up with more money, but I don't quite understand why.
Okay, so we probably need to go up to question 3 and go to the group. We're not all here yet. So I said, you know, if it was me, what I'd like to do and what I'd do would be 2 different things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mhm.
What I would like to do would be take the money and run. But my conscience wouldn't let me because you've negotiated in good faith with these people. The angel investors want you to stay. Everybody wants you kind of. I would feel like I was letting everybody down, and I would stay in. And that's kind of way I viewed this guy.
And
What he-
that's exactly how he felt too.
Mhm.
What he'd like to do is take the money and run, but he doesn't want to let all these other people down. And they're kind of pressuring him. Let's be honest, they did say they pressured him, and
Yeah.
you've got this contract. You're 3 days away from signing it, and now they're saying, "Hey, we'll give you all this money."
Right.
So I say he shouldn't accept it. Turn down the
I would
offer.
agree. I would
Me
agree.
too. I agree too. But just to play devil's advocate, financially, if you're going solely on financial situation, which one is better, the buyout or staying with it?
Probably staying with it.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
But
Yeah.
my kicker was a bird in hand's worth two in the bush. There's more than two in the bush,
Right.
And that's why I would want to do it, but
And it doesn't really seem like, we've seen these other entrepreneurs where they're really like an entrepreneurial spirit. He doesn't seem to really have that. So I think for him to take the money would be almost like
a
all
blessing.
right, yeah, like I'm taking the money, but now what? Like, what would he do with his life? I feel like he didn't.
Well, he
I
seems
just-
like a family man,
Yeah, for sure.
and
But would he be
So,
happy just
if
sitting
he
around?
took it, his family would be more or less set.
Right.
It doesn't sound like he's into the big house, big car. It's more into the hiking with the kids, and is probably a comfortable house. I mean, I would assume he's.
Cost of living's kind of high in Colorado.
Especially Boulder.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's done well. He's probably got a nice house, but not a big, huge mansion. But-
Right.
and I don't see this guy really changing a whole lot. Money changing him to want a big, huge mansion.
Mhm.
Right.
I see him more as like take the money, I'll invest it.
Well, and nothing's to say that if he sells it, then he has to stop right there. He can go back to work or build another company if that's what he really wanted to. But you're right. I didn't feel the drive from him to actually get in and build it.
Right.
It was more of a, hey, I have this solution. Let's form a company around it,
Right. He was almost talked into the formation of the company.
Right. Yeah. He was more passionate about figuring out the problem.
Mm-hmm. So I think his role as the chief technology officer is definitely where he needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
And he also said he didn't want to be in charge of people.
Right. Right. Yeah. So I don't see him, like, if he does end up selling, I don't see him going out and getting a job as a CEO or something. I mean, he's going to be a behind the scene guy. So why not stick with what he's got? And he's getting the right people in place and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if he was getting the right people in place. So
You don't like that guy he was going to bring on?
Shields. No, I couldn't put my finger on it, but no, I didn't like
Is it because he wanted 50-50 and to be a co-founder
That's
without really having done the work?
that's a part of it, but I think just
Wants to say arrogant.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Mhm.
I mean, because that little point where he says, "I can't believe some guy in Colorado's came up with this idea I've been trying to figure out for years."
Right.
Yeah.
Me with my Harvard degree, this guy with his nasty little degree from the University of Colorado came up with has figured out. No, no.
I don't
I
believe
want to
it.
meet with him.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and he has no experience as a CEO. He has no experience with building a business. He did have some venture capitalism experience, but for him coming in asking what he's asking, I don't think he had the qualifications to ask for that much.
Right. All right,
If you're
Dylan,
bringing
sound check.
jobs on, absolutely, but
Oh, I don't know. I think the qualifications were there, but I thought it was a little bit greedy.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, Dylan, can we hear me?
I don't know what's going on with this thing.
That's better. It's
Oh,
better.
yeah,
Much
very
better.
good.
Much better.
Oh, score. All right. I just
Yeah.
plugged it back in. All right. Awesome.
Maybe to spit on it or something. Who knows?
I guess so. Okay.
Throw some dirt on it.
So do you have anything to contribute to this discussion about shields?
So I don't know what you guys have already said and whatnot, but
Number 3. What's your vote on number 3? Should Doug accept the turn offer? Yes or no?
I don't think. I think that he should take the money instead of working with that one guy.
So yes. Because you thought that Shields was kind of a arrogant person too, huh?
Yeah, he wasn't my favorite.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us liked him.
No, yeah.
My thought was what he would like to do and what he will do are going to be two different things.
Yeah.
Right.
He would like to take the money, but he won't.
I would, yeah.
And that's what I would do. I'd love to take the money, but I would feel too committed to all those people that you got in this thing. And plus, you kind of want to see it through. The other kicker is he wasn't quite done with it yet. And that was the attractive thing with Shields, was Shields understood what he was talking about when they talked. And he was frustrated with talking to these other capital investors, and they didn't have a clue. So,
yeah, but is understanding every nuance of it key to running the company? I don't know that it is. That's what your CTO is for.
That's his mindset, though. He was frustrated because these people that he was talking to couldn't figure it out, because he spent half his time talking about the part of it.
Right. And that's where I think he needed a CEO that could come in and do the people side of the business.
Okay.
A lot of engineers are, and totally stereotyping here, but they're introverts that would rather sit in their office and work on their problem than get out and deal with people and pitch the company and things like that. So
that was a plus for Shields.
Yeah.
He was very arrogant, but he understood the technology, and he could kind of wheel and deal with people. No, he didn't have the experience, but you know.
Right.
He'd been through the little thing before. He did the net gravity. And you know, he wrote most of the coding on that. Or wrote much of the original coding, they said.
Right.
So, you know, this guy had a little bit more experience, and he didn't mind dealing with people.
Right. So how much?
But he's arrogant and he wanted to be a co-founder, and by dang, it shows co-founder whenever you look up anything of this guy.
Does it?
Oh yeah, if you look up his name,
okay.
co-founder.
So right. So how much does he deserve then? Like, if we go down to question 7, how much does he deserve?
Well, I would say 30 to 40%.
What I felt, I thought he deserved. You know, he deserved quite a bit because he was going to be responsible. But 50-50, I mean, he's already got the co-founder title, but I don't think he deserved the 50-50. I really did.
He made a good point. I mean, I don't think he does either, but he does make a good point by saying that by the time, you know, they go through, they recognize they're going to have to go through quite a few more series of fundings, that his ownership was whittled down. So I get his point behind why he feels that he needs to have 50%, because after roundings, he's going to be not very much. But I mean, I feel that he should only get like 35% to start off with.
I was thinking 35 too.
Yeah. So.
I don't think he would accept it though that much. I think you have to go higher, but I still don't think he should have got 50%. But see, the kicker is he's in California.
Right. Cost of living.
They're going to do better, and he has more connections there to get the clientele. Is that the right word?
Right. Yeah, he has the Silicon Valley connections there.
And that's why they were going to leave him there, is because of his.
Where Doug will be doing the coding and all that stuff, and he'll be working on the actual nuts and bolts of it.
Do you guys think it's weird that they were going to be in 2 separate cities? I thought that was kind of strange for a startup.
I thought that was kind of weird too, just because it's just like, if they needed to meet up, would they just be doing video calls the whole time or what? But
right.
That get kind of old.
Was there video calls in 2000?
Well, that's what I was just going to say. There wasn't that technology yet. So I mean, it would be a lot of phone calls, conference calls.
Yeah, conference calls.
Conference calls, and you could do stuff like that.
But it just doesn't seem like for a real good, conducive
Well, he
environment.
came once a week, he said, so.
Yeah, but like, I don't know.
I just all day, so that's 1/5 of the time. But yeah, it was a different thing, different setup, kind of funky. And they were doing different, but they were doing different parts of the business, different ends. It sounded like to me,
Yeah.
because Shields was doing more implementation of how it's going to work with the ads and stuff, where Doug was going to do the coding and so
Right.
you have to have the coding's got to merge somehow and work together.
So
And that
could
was the
Doug,
good part with Shields. He understood the coding.
right. So could Doug use the turn offer to his advantage if he rejects it then? I think he can, because he could be a leverage and be like, hey, look, I've got this offer.
Well, isn't that what he ended up doing?
That's exactly what. Well, no, actually, Shields came with the counteroffer.
Right.
To give up
To say,
more.
hey, yeah,
Do a
hey,
60-40 split instead of a 50-50 split.
Oh,
And that's where I thought it was right in the first place anyway.
Where is that?
towards the end, I think. Let's see.
Case B. I gotta read case B, be ready for it.
All right, well, we can read it. Do you want to read it? I didn't ever see where I thought they came back with the 50-50. I didn't see where they came back with 40.
Yeah, it ended up with a 40-60 split, and Doug got to take some cash out.
Where are you seeing that?
That's the first paragraph.
Yeah, first paragraph of B.
He ultimately agreed to take 40% of the common.
Do you want to read that, Rex, then? The whole case?
Okay, I'll just do the whole paragraph. It was December 2007, and Yieldex CEO Tom Shields was driving the company to the company's Boulder, Colorado office to meet his co-founder, Doug Kozman. Since becoming the CEO of Yieldex in October 2007, Shields communicated from the Bay Area to meet with Kozman and the engineering team on a weekly basis. Kozman almost sold Yield for $4 million in September 2000, but after a agonizing internal debate, he decided to forgo the quick exit and hire Shields to help him pursue additional financing and grow the fledgling company. Shields and Kozman had been negotiating on an equal split when an unexpected offer came in, and they were close to an agreement in which Shields had hoped to receive 50% of the pre-Series A common shares. Shields had pressed Kozman to turn down the offer, but that came with a price for Shields. He ultimately agreed to take 40% of the common, while Kozman was held on to the remaining 60, and Kozman then sold 20% of his common back to the company to take out some cash. So Shields and Kozman were diluting their Series A round. Closed several days later, and Shields joined the company's Sequoia Venture Partners, led the round with a $2 million investment, and they were joined by first round capital of 500,000 angel investors who converted their seed notes and Series A shares and invested additional monies. Exhibit 1 for the final Series A capitalization and pre-money evaluation of Series A was $4.9 million.
Wow.
So over here, you see that the angel investor B did another 175,000, and C did another 175,000.
Interesting.
And then you see that Doug Kozman ended up with 50% of the common shares. Shields ended up with 34%. Other was 1%. Employee option pool 16%.
That was just at the beginning of the series, right? And then when you go to the fully diluted, that's after they get all the investment money, right?
That's the shares they gave to the investors.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
So when they put in the additional money, they say, okay, valuation for these shares is this much.
Interesting. Okay, so then
We at Angel C, they ended up with, over 750,000 shares in the end for their $300,000 investment. Actually, really, it wasn't even 350. Well, actually, they initially invest 275,000 was their actually out of pocket because the conversion, they got the bit of, I'm sure Angel A only got put in 50,000 is what I'm betting on that. And the conversion moved it up to 65,800.
yeah.
But I
Okay,
could be wrong. That's just what I'm thinking happened. So,
all right. So if we go on, then we need to read the second part of that to talk about the new guy that they want to hire. So I can read that. When Shields joined as CEO, Cosman became the company's chief technology officer, reporting to Shields. Cosman explained, I was not interested in leading a team of engineers on a day-to-day basis, but I wanted to be the technical leader of the company. Cosman had converted the 3 contractors to full-time employment and hired 2 more in the last few months, and both he and Shields thought they needed to be led by an experienced vice president of engineering. Shields met with several candidates for VPE position during November, and he quickly realized that he and Cosman had different perspectives on the qualification of the ideal candidate. Cosman preferred someone with deep technical expertise in internet advertising software who would immediately understand how this technology related to systems already in use in the industry. In fact, he hoped to promote one of the Yieldex employees who had been working with Cosman on the Yieldex solution over the last year and had previously been a team lead. Shields, however, preferred deep management experience with software development projects in small companies. He was comfortable hiring someone who had not worked in internet advertising as long as the individual had a track record of managing high productivity startup teams to achieve aggressive development milestones. Shields knew that the issue would come to head this week. He had recently met a Boulder-based candidate, John Barr, who came highly recommended from SQL partner Tom Washing. Barr had a strong track record with multiple successful startups. He had been the CTO of his last 2 companies, but he was willing to join Yieldex as VPE, also reporting to Shields. Shields believed Barr was a good fit and he was ready to hire him. But Cosmo was troubled by Barr's unfamiliarity with several of the key components of the Yieldex solution. He wondered how Barr could manage a software platform that he didn't fully understand. Cosmo was also concerned that Barr seemed to be questioning the skills and output of some of the employees that he had hired. As Shields pulled up to the Yieldex offices, he thought about the implications of hiring Barr against Cosman's wishes. He was comforted by Washington's support of Barr, as he knew that Cosman respected Washington's perspective. Nevertheless, he wondered how Cosman and Barr would interact as the 2 team leaders of the Boulder office, and also how it would work when the 5 engineers that Cosman had hired began to report to Barr. Shields knew that the group would have to work closely together in Boulder while he jump-started the sales and marketing efforts in the Bay Area. Cosman had architected the Yieldex software, and Barr would need his support to manage the team effectively. Shields respected Cosman's desire to keep looking at other candidates, but he needed to fill the position so he could refocus his efforts, and he was impressed with Barr's credentials. So, should he hire him?
you bet.
No,
Yep.
I don't think so. I think that he's looking for the right qualifications. He needs someone that is going to question, are we getting the output of the employees that we need? I think Cosman needs to step back and decide, does he want to be a technology person or does he want to be a people leader? Because it's really hard to do both. But if they're going to be butting heads all the time, then it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Have any of you guys read Jim Collins' Good to Great?
Mm-hmm.
One of his big things is get the right people in the right spot on the right bus.
Yep.
And hiring someone just because you're tired of looking is always a bad idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
I mean, I've done it, and it will bite you every time.
Mm-hmm.
But if you continue to try to find the perfect person, you're hurting the company.
You can, but you do need to have someone that's going to be able to work with the group that's in place, or you need to replace the group that's in place.
But Cosman wants to promote. Those guys aren't qualified.
Right. I agree.
So
I agree with that.
this
But, so
guy
they need to figure it out.
the last two companies, so it's not like he's inept.
Mm-hmm.
He would actually be taking a step down for this position than he would for the other ones.
Yeah. Well, I like Barr's qualifications. I like how he is
And
questioning.
how do we
his
know the
skills,
Cosman's not going to be able to work with the guy yet?
because he's already putting up really strong objections.
And he's not even in the position yet.
Yeah, he's saying, no, I really don't want this guy. I don't like how he's questioning my team. I don't like how he's not familiar with this. I think
Sounds
in
like
this situation, with them not getting along, I think a big part of it is Cosman's issue and some of his deals. But as co-founder, that's something they're going to have to work with.
It kind of sounds like what Shields was thinking of Cosman in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
How can a guy figure out something I can't figure out?
Right.
Has he worked with him? No. So what excuses does he have? How does he know this guy can't learn and figure out things real quick? How do they know they're not going to get along? He's just protesting because he wants to hire somebody from within. He's not going to be happy, and they don't have the leadership qualifications to take the job.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to have somebody with that qualification. Cosman's idea is they have to understand the stuff. How many people is he going to find out there that
Not many.
Not many, but
from his team? That's the only ones. People who've been working with him on this project are the only ones.
Well, I think when you're in a position that is that high in a company, it's more important to be able to manage people and understand how to develop a team than it is to understand the nuances of the product that you're working on. That's why you have people that are working on the product itself. The manager or the VTE should be working with developing the company and the team itself. So I totally agree with Shields on this, but I think just because of the resistance between the two, it's not a good fit.
I say it is, because he won't be happy. They're going to put it off because he'll never be happy until he hires somebody from within, and they do not have the qualifications, and he's going to hurt the company badly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with Shields on this. 100% couldn't go any stronger.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to break a few eggs, make omelet. And this is this case. Because Cosmo isn't going to be happy with anybody out there unless it's somebody from the team, because nobody will fully understand the intricacies of the coding and all that stuff to suit his goods. And does this person require that kind of knowledge?
Mm-hmm. So maybe that's where Shields needs to lean on Washing, who is the one that's been kind of mentoring Cosman, to say, Washing, you need to talk to Cosman. You need to help him understand what type of qualifications we need in this role.
And
I think that Shield, as a leader, he needs to be able to help Cosman change his mindset and point out to Cosman how it's going to affect the company if he just pushes forward with what he thinks.
And see, he's not even giving the guy a chance. He's already whining and making excuses that are irrelevant.
Shields isn't even going to be there. Like, he's only coming in. He's going to fill this position. He's never going to come back again. So, I mean, I'm with Trisha on this one. He's got to find somebody that's going to get along with
someone they can work with.
Yeah, because Ellie, don't take that. Like,
how do you know Cosman can't get along with him? Cosman just assumes he can't because he doesn't have the technology.
No, he's saying that he's already questioning. He's questioning his people that he's been working with for a year and growing the business. And some guy wants to come in and fire people. Like he
said questioning, but how do you know he's just not asking questions about how it is and what they're doing and how they're doing things, so he understands it better? And he's just taking it the wrong way.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the fun of the case studies, because we can each interpret it differently. We only have such a small little
Right.
piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
You know, if we could,
I just think he's whining. He wants somebody, he wants to hire somebody within, and that would be a humongous mistake.
oh, I agree.
Find any little pick that he can knit and pick that baby off the whole thing, and he might be blowing things out of proportion. How many times have they met?
Yeah. Well, there is a huge difference between a team lead and a VPE. A huge. And so I would agree that somebody that his leadership qualifications, his previous experience as a team lead, you know, I kind of equate that to being a project manager. You're not ready for a senior position based on being a project manager or a
Right.
team lead.
Right. I agree with that. But we're still in the very beginning stages of a company. It's not like Doug didn't have any experience as a CTO, and here he is now doing it.
True.
You know, so who's to say that this team lead couldn't grow into the position?
Oh, he totally could.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they're still on a
With
very
all these investors.
well. I mean, yeah, I
All
understand
investors'
that.
money. You got already Washington that's endorsed this guy. He's from the Boulder, Colorado area. It's not like he's got to move in or anything. If he doesn't work out, but he doesn't even want to give him a chance.
I don't know, Dallin, what do you think?
I think that he's kind of just worried about all the changes that are going to occur. I think there's definitely, you don't want too many red flags if you're going to choose somebody to take up this position or anything. You know, I'm seeing kind of both sides of both of the stories right now, but overall, I don't know, like I see that it would be good for them to like try him out, I would say. But if you already don't care for him from the start, like what makes you think you're going to care for him more down the road? So
Right.
I don't know. I think it's important that they find somebody that they're already agreeing with and working well with from the start, and then just grow into it that way. I mean, I just
Yeah.
want somebody who can learn it that.
Once you get somebody in that position and they're not a good fit, it is a legal and logistical nightmare to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Not if you have it in the
It's-
contract.
It's not as simple as, you know, okay, I'm going to put you on a verbal because I don't like your attitude. It's
Mhm.
it's pretty intensive, and it usually costs
If you
hundreds of
hire them
thousands
in
of
the
dollars in
contract,
lawyers.
in the contract that says, hey, you got a 90-day probationary period for this position, you know, and give them a severance pay or whatever. If it doesn't work out, it's not going to be a legal issue.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can do like those.
Big companies, they have probationary periods.
Yeah.
And they have a nice little severance pay too if it doesn't work out, because the guy's got to go out and find another job.
Yeah, I don't know at that level if they would take a position with a 90-day probationary period.
Right. Because they'd be
Yeah,
leaving. I
that's
mean, he's
more like-
leaving.
Paid internship type of a thing, and he's kind of high up there. But
You're talking probably $200,000-300,000 a year minimum.
that's what I'm saying. Just find somebody from the start that you
And
like.
if the co-founder doesn't like you, why wouldn't you? You know, you got to prove to the co-founder you're worth your salt. Because he's
Yeah,
already,
but at the end of the day, he could be like, you know what? I'm fine. I don't need to prove myself to you. I'm going to go to this company. Like if I'm an executive, I'm not going to do a probationary period. Because I don't have to prove to you that I am good enough to be in that position. There's 100 other people that want me in their role without having to prove
it won't
myself.
be for his qualifications and ability to do it. It'd be, can you get along with the co-founder?
Yeah, but again, like he could be giving up another like for sure job to try it out to only be dismissed 90 days later. He won't do that.
Well, he's at a job right now, so.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah, so is he going to want to give up a secure job for
for a
90
probationary period. Yeah, I don't see that
But
happening.
I just think that Cosmo's just whining, and he's not going to be happy with anybody they choose unless it's hired within, and that's a big mistake.
I think, you know,
That's a good point. He very well may be, but that's where Shield has to use his people skills to help him come around.
And that's it. He's already got Warshman on his side. Shield's got a Warshman on his side. Cosman respects Warshman's opinion. You know,
we're only like how many months into
these investors are going to want him to promote somebody from within. They'll go bug-eyed bonkers.
This guy probably feels threat. I mean, I could see Cosman feeling threatened and be like, I just gave up 40% of my company to this guy who now wants to redo everything that I've been doing. Like, he's probably feeling threatened also. And like, hold on.
He said he needed somebody to hire somebody there in the first case.
Right, but Shields is pulling. But Shields is thinking about going behind his back and doing something. They're not equal partners in this thing. Cosman still has majority, and so for.
Is he really going behind his back?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. That's what he's saying.
In the case that suggested, and that's Cosman has lots of respect to Washman's ability.
I don't know. I think we just agree to disagree because.
Yeah, think about why Cosman even wanted to make the business. It's not like something.
Right.
This was kind of his dream type of a thing. So you got to kind of look at.
He's not into building. I mean, he's not. He's more. He doesn't want to deal with people. He wants to do his thing and.
Right.
Yeah, but this is kind of like the
normally that's a how do you want to put it? That's the key to saying I'm not really a people person.
Mm-hmm.
That's normally a red flag for I'm not a people person.
Right.
Maybe the people working for him don't care for Cosman either. But they're getting their paycheck and they're doing their job.
So what I read, Cosman reminds me a lot of my dad. I mean, you could put my dad's name in here and this could be his story. It's just funny. And the way that his mind works is he has a certain set pattern. And the more you push him, the more he's going to dig his heels in. Mm-hmm. But if you just kind of guide him and say, okay, here's what I think, and kind of help him come to that conclusion, then he'll be 100% going in that direction.
I think Washman should be there when they're talking about this.
Oh, I agree. 100%. I think Washman is key.
And I think that it's not fair that he's, already saying, hey, I can't get along with this guy.
So if we go on to case
he's already questioning our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
How does he know that he's not just asking questions about what they're doing, what he does? And you can interpret that different ways. So what's he doing right now?
Oh, well, and he may have some.
Getting paid,
Yeah, well, he may have some legitimate concerns about, you've got X amount of people working on this. Why aren't they putting more out? That may be a very legitimate concern. I just don't know that.
Because he's not really a people manager.
Right. Yeah. So I agree they need someone. I just don't know at this point that with the current environment that this is the right choice.
I'm just thinking you got an investor that recommended this. Cosman Trust. You have the CEO that's had businesses before, and he likes his qualifications. It's not like he doesn't have the qualifications to do the job. At least a whole lot more than somebody from within that he wants to promote from the engineering staff or whatever, the code writers.
Well, let's go to question 10 because we're kind of dancing around a lot of those topics. How is that decision going to affect the company culture, the leadership team, and the investor relationships?
It's disruptive. I think bringing in somebody that the whole team isn't on board with is a bad idea. It's just a bad idea.
I think it might be good for investor relationships. Company culture and leadership team, I think it's bad.
Yeah.
And at the end of the line, what's going to make the business grow? Is it having a team that has that synergy that can work together to produce what they need to do? Or is it the investors that are going to keep throwing money into it? I think you kind of have to have both.
I would say company culture, it would be probably a disadvantage because Cosman's already got his mind made up. But leadership would be a plus, and investor relationship would be a plus.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because Osmond's already said he's not a leader.
One other thing to consider, and
And he doesn't want to be a leader, so.
yeah, he doesn't want to, but one other thing to consider is Cosman has a working relationship with his entire team. And I hope he wouldn't be petty enough to stab himself in the back. But if they bring someone in that he doesn't like, how is his attitude going to affect the rest of the team?
Right.
I mean, we got like a paragraph on this.
Exactly.
We don't know what kind of person he is. We don't know if he's one that can get along. But, you know, leaders tend to have to make tough decisions.
They do, and sometimes they're not popular.
Pointing out things that aren't working sometimes or could be improved. Those times I think was good right from the get-go for Barr. I thought those I counted as pluses. And see, Cosman tend to count those as negatives.
Right.
So, you know, and it's just like he doesn't want the change made, like you were saying, Trish. He's kind of got his routine. He doesn't like the change. Let's just kind of push this to the back of the bus still. How long do you keep pushing it to the back of the bus before you finally make a decision?
Right.
How are your investors going to be feeling if you keep pushing things to the back of the bus? Don't get people in there that's going to help you grow.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that it may not be the right fit at the right time.
But I'm thinking that the company culture, that could be a disadvantage. But team leading, I think that's a plus. I think investor relationships, a plus.
Yeah.
Because the investors are going to look at this guy and say, hey, look where he's been. He's been a CTO, and we're going to get him for a VP.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've kind of repeated the same thing over and over again. I think we just need to agree to disagree and move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So number 11.
if we go on to the case C, it says 6 months later, and I think this is going to go and prove to Trisha's point that 6 months later, the email from the VP, so they end up hiring John Barr, says, Tom, Doug continues to be disruptive. His salary is $170,000. He holds the title CTO, which I should have. His team wasn't functional and has been replaced. At the board meeting today, do the right things for the company. So who's the problem? It's hard to tell from that. I mean, one could argue that because Barr came in, you know, Doug didn't want Barr, that there could have been some attitude, but there could also be that Barr felt that he deserved the position as CTO from the beginning. And so he has now completely torn apart his team, and Doug is retaliating.
Yeah, it's hard to tell just from that email.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think it means when they say, do the right thing for the company? What do you think he's insinuating?
I think he's insinuating at the very least a demotion. Probably asking him to step down or step away.
My initial thought when I read that statement was that he wanted him to fire him and be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Cosman still has a majority share, but if they have the board on board with it, that doesn't matter.
Right. Crazy. So does Yieldex need Cosman anymore, or are they now beyond Cosman's contribution?
I think they still need his technical expertise.
I think he fired him. Or they decide to part ways. Just from the research, I kind of looked around.
I was gonna say I'm gonna Google real quick.
Because as CTO, you need to have the leadership skills.
Right.
And he said he didn't want that.
So could they just put him in as like chief engineer or something, and then
I don't know.
But here's the problem: you can sense that there is a problem between Barr and Doug. Like there's obviously a disconnect. Like from the beginning, we saw that, we argued it, we know it's there. So does having the two that can't get along foster a bad working environment? Yes.
Absolutely.
And so who do you get rid of? The guy that started the company and has been with it from the beginning, or fire Doug because he doesn't have the skills or the desire to be into that role? Do you just, at that point, do you say, you know what, we've gotten everything we can from you. We're sorry, but take your shares and see you later.
Retire.
Right.
Spend more time hiking with your kids.
Right. I mean, now we're talking a year probably after they've gotten the funding. So they're probably doing fairly well, you know, because, and we don't know because Shields, we haven't heard much from Shields other than he's
Well, the other
probably,
thing you got to consider, how long is the company going to be based in, well, that part of the company is going to be based in Colorado. Because actually,
Did you know that?
in California.
Yeah.
The main base is in California for the company. Because that's where your advertising and all that stuff's going to be.
Yeah.
And that's where you want to be. If you're a tech company, you want to be in the Silicon Valley at this time, you know, in 2007. Well, even now.
Well, his LinkedIn profile still shows him as working.
Well, he died in
For
2015, so.
Yeah, I was going to say, except it also looks like he's passed away. So.
Yeah.
oh, he was
Pancreatic
probably,
cancer,
interesting.
Yeah, pancreatic cancer.
which could cause you to be a little bit grouchy,
A little bit. Well, this was also 9 years later, so.
on edge.
So could Doug
Yeah,
have avoided it?
In 6 years, because that would have been like 6 months later, that would have been at least 2008.
Yeah.
14 is only 6 years away.
Mm-hmm.
How could Doug have avoided getting into this situation?
Well, he could have sold.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought he could have done from the start, but that was just me.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Right. I mean, that's one way. He could have had a better attitude about bringing him in. I mean,
I agree. He could have been more flexible and understood his strengths and weaknesses, I think is a key component.
I just don't think he's a good people person. I mean, he admits that. And so if you already have a bad taste about somebody, it's going to be hard to change your mind, especially if you're, he seems very tense, not really bendable. He wants it his way. I mean, he was very, but then I say that and I think, well, not really, because he gave up a lot of his company at the beginning. So I don't know.
I think, I don't know if it's a good way to say that he's not a very good people person. You got to remember, he's from New York. Colorado and New York is totally different environments.
Yeah.
Back east, they're very direct, which out here, it would be kind of offensive.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the way it goes back east, you know, when I was back east, I'm like, oh my gosh, when I was on my mission, you know, and that's just the way they are. They're right to your face, in your face, and telling you how it is.
Mm-hmm.
We're around here, we kind of go around the tulips and, you know, beat around the bush and hint and wink wink and hope that people get what you're trying to say. But they're like, you stink. I don't like you.
Yeah, that's true.
Around here, you can't avoid the people. You don't associate with them that much. You don't tell them that you don't like them. You kind of avoid them. And so he probably had a little bit of that New York in him. And it probably wouldn't go well in the West.
That's probably.
Well, and I think also a lot of people that are so technical in nature.
They're geeks, nerds.
Well, they're very
not very
analytical.
Skilled.
They're very analytical, introverted. They kind of see the one path, and that's it. They're not very good at looking outside of what they think the right direction
and that's
is.
Probably why he succeeded at breaking this code.
Right.
Yeah.
Was able to do what he did.
Yeah, I mean, he literally, just the fact that he wasn't even being paid by anybody to break it. He's just like, ooh, I have to figure it out. It was an obsession. And it was his baby for so long. That's why he's so passionate about having someone that understands it. And that's where
Absolutely.
he needs to understand that he has some very, very great strengths. Managing people is not one of them, and he needs to leave that to somebody else.
Well, he recognizes that.
But he
and the
needs to be able to step completely back from it and say, I'm going to go sit in my little cubicle and work on this problem.
Yeah. But do you think because they'd solved that problem that there really wasn't a need for him anymore? I mean, he'd solved the problem. They've now built.
There's always, though. They're always looking for the next thing.
Yeah.
And
I mean, if they weren't, our computers would still fill our entire house. So
That's true.
truthfully, they could have probably paid him that much to be an engineer.
Mhm.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's making that much money because didn't they say they were going to pay Shields like a starting salary of, what was it? It was ridiculous. I remember reading, they're like, I want that salary to start.
Not with that resume.
Annual salary of 120.
Yeah, 120.
Oh no, wait, I'm sorry. That was Cosmic salary.
Doesn't really say what they're going to pay Barr.
Well, maybe I'm not Bar. Oh yeah, no, they didn't. I was talking about Shields. How much they started
Shields.
paying.
They talked about his starting salary either.
They didn't. Oh,
I thought they did
I did too.
in the contract.
Contract. I was
the
actually just
contract.
looking at that.
Oh, his $250,000 a year.
Okay.
$20,000 a month of a startup company.
Wish I could have that.
Seriously. Yeah.
Well, they wanted him pretty bad.
Yeah.
Well, also consider where he's living and the cost of living.
Right.
And we've already talked about how
A two-bedroom condo is $2 million.
Right.
how he was kind of a shrewd negotiator anyway.
Right. Okay, so do we want to change our minds about the buyout now, seeing what has happened over the last year? If I were Doug, I'd be like, yup, I want to sell.
Yeah.
I want to go back.
Start out
He's-
with like,
yeah.
He's
couple
kind of been
million
stabbed in the
dollars.
back by everybody he's done.
But has
Who he
he-
worked for.
Well,
has he
no, but I could see him feeling that way. Like he didn't want to he didn't really want to get Shields involved for that much equity. He didn't really want to hire Barr, and now they're trying to oust him. I mean, I would feel stabbed in the back. I
But
feel like they were going behind my back and doing stuff.
he owns 4,950,000 shares.
Yeah.
That's more
So
than.
if he were to sell those, he'd be pretty set for just
Yeah.
what, a year's worth of work.
Yeah.
And he sold some of them, back to the company to get a whole bunch of money anyway.
Right.
Mhm.
So, no, I'd still stay in because he made more money.
Yeah. It was probably pretty stressful, and he had to, you have to kind of take that into account. But I think he's still better off.
But he could walk
kept
away. Maybe he feels stabbed in the back, but he finished the project. He's going to have that satisfaction. He's made more money. He's been paid $170,000 a month or a year or whatever, over this time. So he's made that money too. He's living comfortable. What's he got to prove? That he can fight with Barr?
Right.
We can
Yeah.
fight. Where's the joy in that? He can walk away.
Yeah.
He might feel relieved.
Good. But it doesn't look like he did.
No, doesn't look like he did.
Yeah.
But he's in. Another thing was he's in a role that he really shouldn't have took.
Mhm.
He wasn't qualified because he wasn't, that type of position, you need to have people skills.
Right. And that comes back to the question, what could he have done to avoid this situation? He could have recognized that managing people is not his strong point, and that's a big part of being a CTO.
Yep, he could have said, hey, I'm going to be some kind of engineer, lead engineer or whatever, but I want a boatload of money to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because I am co-founder and I want to make a boatload of money.
I'm the one that made this company possible.
I
So
want to
you're gonna
make
pay
money
me
that a
the rest of my
CTO would make. You know, I'm not wanting the title, but I want to make kind of that kind of money.
And I think he could get away. And I think that Shields and Barr probably would have been okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, or when he got done, he could have just said, hey, I don't need to do this. I'm going to go try something else.
I'm going to
So-
hold on to my stocks and
Just
I don't know
FYI.
that I don't know that he could walk away from that though.
Or sell my stocks and find a house in Arizona too.
Arizona's nice.
Or Cabo.
Just for what it's worth, I found that they did end up selling to AppNexus for $100 million in 2015.
Nice.
And Tom Shields is the only, like I'm looking at AppNexus website right now, and Tom Shields is the only one that has remained on the team, and he is chief strategy officer for AppNexus. Nobody else is there anymore.
Mhm.
So just
100 million though, huh?
$100 million in 2015. Yep.
8 years later.
Nice.
For
Actually,
cash and stock.
Wow.
So how much is that a month?
So if he still kept his stocks, then his family should be okay. His wife and kids should be fine.
Right.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it had
I'm sure they are.
so AppNexus started in 2007 and raised more than $300 million and was valued at 1.2 billion when they
Yeah.
and they had just started their IPO when they bought Yieldex.
Well, that's
So for what it's worth, we can end our discussion on that.
there it is. That I don't know what better way to say it.
There we go.
All right. Well, is there anything?
Yeah, this one was tough because he was kind of convinced to starting the business.
Right.
And he did have a good idea. And he came up with the secret code, you know, type deal. He cracked it. So he did what he needed to do. But he had he didn't want to be in charge of people, really.
Mhm.
And then he threw himself in a role that he needed to be in charge of people, but he didn't want to be. That's not a very effective thing to do.
Right. He was
Right.
only 60 when he died. Just for what
I
it's
mean,
worth.
Yeah.
realistically, it would have been so much better for him to take his idea to someone, maybe Weissman, that had the business experience and say, here is my idea. I'd like you to build a company and pay me an exorbitant amount of money
Mhm.
once you get it going.
Okay, so let's think of it this way too, though. He owned how much percent? He owned 29%. So if he did actually keep those shares, 100 million, I can do that. $29 million.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. In what, 10 years?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good return.
I think he could probably put up with a lot of grief for that.
Mm-hmm.
That might be worth a little bit of stress.
It's funny. I'm reading on AppNexus's blog. They talk about it, and they talk about Tom and Doug solving the problem together.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hold on a second. That's Doug. I think that's interesting that they put the two together, solving the problem, not Doug by himself. So I guess that's what you give up when you relinquish co-founder rights. Is
Well,
you're not the only one that founded it.
if you look at I read one that it made it sound like the same thing, and it was his bio from Yieldex.
Well, also keep in mind who's writing that.
It was Tom
Is
Shields'
it-
bio. If you read that,
Uh-huh. Exactly. It's Shield that was writing it. So of course he's going to say we solved this problem together.
Yep.
I'm sure if Doug had written one, it probably would have said, "I solved this," and then brought Tom in.
Yep, he was the money man behind the thing. I
Yeah.
was like, and then, when you said that, I was like, what an arrogant guy. This guy is really arrogant, He's so full of himself, it's not even funny.
But you kind of need that a little bit.
If you want to use real quick, because I've been thinking that after reading that.
Yeah. Anywho.
I guess what you could say is Doug was a minnow among sharks.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
He was way out of his element, but hopefully he had that 29% when they sold, or his family did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
alrighty. Well, I've got accounting homework, and Dylan's got to get to bed. So
I know. I'm ready for that. All right, guys. Thank you.
Yep. Have fun with the write-up, because I'm probably worse off than I was before we started the discussion on where.
I'll see you guys later.
You guys had some compelling arguments.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
this is one that could go in so many different directions.
I'm more unsure than I was, because I was pretty dang sure when I went in.